All right, we are live. This is Rediscovering Black Conservatism. We are here with a very special guest, Jennifer Sanone, running for U.S. Congress. How you feel?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Feeling good, feeling good. We're going to get a little bit about local politics. You're running in Bayonne, born and raised. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm the sixth generation of my family here, so I've been here forever. I went to the same school that my great grandmother and great great grandmother went to. I never realized that was that unusual until last night. Um, I studied microbiology and physics in college, but I work as a writer. I'm very active in my church that I grew up in. I was church council president, started the prayer group. Um, I do a lot of volunteering in the neighborhood, create community outreach programs. And I love getting involved in the community. And that's kind of what started me on the progress to politics because I started seeing how people were being affected by leaders that were ignoring them and weren't helping them through the church. And I started getting more aware of the problems in the community that needed addressing. And that's what led me here.
Right. Well, that's a good thing. That's usually how it starts. So, as what problems did you see in the community that you feel you could help or address?
The biggest thing is education. Seeing kids in school that are being completely left behind. Um, they're starting, it seems like, especially our state and some other Democrat states, are so focused on these liberal programs and they're no longer teaching the basics. Um, they get rid of vocational schooling and kids need a skill when they get out of school and they need to know that college isn't the only option. It might not be the best option. You could have a really great job without a college degree. When I was in school, they used to teach these things and they don't anymore. And I heard on the news about a year ago, which is finally what put me over the top of saying I have to do something, is that they said that American schools are rated 38th in the world. And I thought that that had to be wrong. Like, there's no way that our schools are that bad. So I started looking into it, and it's true. And China is number one. Russia beats us. 37 other countries beat us in education. And we should be the leader in education, not so far behind. And the worst part is that the children that need the help the most are being failed. They're not getting it. They're being left behind.
Right,
And
right.
that's where I want to get involved.
So, as far as from a policy perspective, because you live in a time where everybody cares about policy, as far as education, what do you stand for and what are you proposing?
I I'm behind school choice 100%. I think that if our leaders don't think the public schools are good enough for their kids, so they send them to private schools, how do they have the right to deny other parents the option of where to send their kids? They can't force them into failing schools. So I am a huge proponent of opening up school choice to every parent that wants it. Give them the option to send their kids to a better school. That
Right.
is, I think, the number one thing. And to reinvest in vocational programs. Um, Give kids these other alternatives. I know a man, I'm friends with someone who teaches plumbing in a Newark public high school. He was just hired a year ago. And he said that when he first went there, he went to the guidance counselor whose job is to, give these kids guidance on their futures after high school. And he asked her for a list of apprenticeship programs in the area that he could get his students involved in. And she said, "Oh, I don't do that. I only talk about college. That's not my job." He said, "Well, yeah, it kind of is your job.
Right.
Like,
Right.
they should be giving these other options to kids, and they're not. And this is a public school." And he also said that he wanted to teach his kids that with if you study plumbing, you can have your own business. I mean, you could be an entrepreneur. You could work for yourself and make a really good living. So he took the kids up to the computer lab in the high school and had them research about starting your own business and how you do that and what's involved. And he also wanted them to learn that if you fail, that that's not the end of the world, that you can go on and succeed afterwards. And he was called into the principal's office, which I didn't think, adults do that. And
Right.
he was told by the principal that he never wants to see his kids up in the computer lab again. They belong down in his workshop. And that's just awful. I mean, what are you telling these kids?
Right.
I think they should be taught these, that they can start their own business, that they can do this. You got to encourage children. So I'm a huge proponent of these programs. Absolutely, I think they need to be expanded. And I'm really big on accountability, because Newark gets the largest budget in the state. They have $1 billion school budget, but they have the lowest performing schools. So obviously, throwing money at a school is not the answer. So I'm a huge proponent of accountability. We have to look at where the money is going, because a large portion of it isn't actually going to the students, which is where it should be going to. So I think we need to really, really look into that.
Right, right. Very true. And I just want to touch on a couple of points that you said that about Newark, because when you come to Jersey, you hear about you hear about the urban centers like Newark, Patterson, Atlantic County, and you always hear, oh, we need more funding. We need more funding. We need more. And I feel like education is a very holistic process, right? It involves the teacher to the student, right? It
Yeah.
involves student to the tutor. It involves the student to the parent. So
Mhm.
essentially, it really takes a village to get a kid to school. It's not like, I think school is very cookie cutter. Like it still holds on to this old kind of 20th century, we're going to raise kind of this bourgeois educational class sort of
Mhm.
thing. And every kid learns differently. Like I have kids, and some kids learn visually, some kids learn by hearing,
Uh-huh.
some kids need to try. So choice is a very important factor. The more
Yes.
options you give kids, you can find out where their strong points are so we can build on that. And then the thing is that, like you said, with this whole $1 billion budget, like you said, most of the money goes to bureaucracy, right? It's kind of like,
Mhm.
your favorite nonprofit. You turn on the channel and you see the kids starving, and you're thinking, wow, I'm gonna give him $1. And then you find 10 cents actually goes to him because, same thing when they bring the $1 billion into Newark, the chancellor has to get paid, the vice chancellor has to get paid, and they get a pension plus health benefits. The
Yep.
assistant secretary and undersecretary got to get paid. So by the time the money trickles down, it's like 1/5
Mhm.
of what it's supposed to be. And
Yeah.
like you said, nobody is in the business of children. They're in the business, it's a business, right? They're in a business in the teaching industry, but nobody is in the children's business, if you get
Right.
what.
And it shouldn't be like that. And there are amazing teachers out there, but they're fighting against the system that's kind of rigged against them.
Right.
I know some fantastic teachers, and if they want to buy school supplies, they have to pay for them out of their own money. Like they don't even, I think they get, at least the teachers that I've spoken to, they get $100 a year for school supplies. And this includes like kindergarten and first grade teachers who, they need school supplies. I mean, they need construction paper and like art projects, and they're paying for this out of their own money. And that shouldn't be the case either. I mean, we need to focus on education, and there's so many problems that I think can be fixed long term by fixing our education. Even crime, it could come back to education. You teach kids in schools skills that they need, that could help them, or after school programs. So many cities are getting rid of after school programs. So what are kids going to do after school?
Right.
Most of the parents are working. When I was in school, we had after school programs that keep you busy, that teach you team sports, or I mean, no matter what your interest is, you have to give kids these opportunities, and they're just not anymore.
Right. You're absolutely correct. Just like how adults need an outlet, kids need a healthy outlet, right? Like you mentioned, swimming, karate. We need somewhere to put our energies into, right?
Yes.
So that
Mhm.
way, we can put our energies into a positive direction. And these are the things that people don't talk about, like you said, school choice. And I believe in, like you said, you use the word accountability. I always believe in the word of shared responsibility, right? The
Yeah,
teacher has a major role, but people don't forget, and a lot of people don't want to talk about this in the discussion. Parents have a role to play too.
we do.
Have to be there at the meetings, right? You have
Mhm.
to check on your kids. You have to say, hey, do you need extra help? Do you need work? You have to, like you said, encourage these kids. You know, that's where the real building of a children's self-esteem comes, when they know they have the confidence to succeed. That's what gives them their self-esteem, not giving them a fake award, a fake trophy. It's giving them the tools and letting them see for themselves, like, you have the ability to do anything your mind comes to,
Mhm.
anything you put your mind to, so to speak. You
Exactly.
Yeah, and
And they have to feel safe to fail too. That's one bad thing about these participation trophies. I mean, you're going to fail in life. Everybody is going to, no matter what you do in the world, you're going to have failures. And you need to know the skills on how to pick yourself back up and move forward and not let it weigh you down. And kids need to learn that as well.
right,
And it seems like they're being sheltered now from that, at least the past generation.
right. That's very true. That's very true. But Bayonne is a very, I feel like it's a very important county in New Jersey. So besides education, which is really important, what other policies are you in favor of that's really important?
Healthcare is a big thing to me. When I started hearing all this talk about socialized medicine, it scares me. I have, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. I have an autoimmune disease. I lost my eyesight in college for a few years, and
Mm-hmm.
I was on experimental medicine at NIH, which is the government research hospital, the National Institute of Health. So I'm intricately familiar with both sides of the healthcare industry because of my background in research with microbiology.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that side of it, and I know the patient side of it. And you do not want the government telling you what doctors you can go to or what procedures you're allowed to get. My One of my best friends is lives in Canada, and they keep holding up the Democrats as, Canada is one of those socialized medicines, and they keep using it as a shining example, but they don't tell you the downside of it. Like, I remember Bernie Sanders, did a big publicity thing where he went over the border to show that you can buy insulin for $30.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in America, it's about 400 when you're in that donut hole, which is outrageous. But what he didn't tell you is that same vial of insulin that he bought for $30 there, you can go to our local Walgreens and buy for $27. It's just that it's an old type of insulin. It's where you get a vial of it and you get the individual needles and you have to fill it up and inject yourself. The $400 is these like pens, like the newer, you just have to dial it. It's
Right,
and you like that. But so they're very misleading. Like, if you need orthopedic surgery, it could take you 8 months from your injury to the surgery in Canada. And by then, the majority of people have some form of lasting disability because of the wait period. Do we really want that in America? I
right,
don't think so. There's a reason why we are the place where everybody wants to come in the world. And we can't change that. You can't take choice away from people. You can't take their healthcare away from them and force everybody onto a government plan. I think that's so dangerous.
right. So I would say, what policies are you in favor of, since, like you said, both sides by you being a
Mhm.
patient and you being on the research end of it? What policies do you think is best, as far as, like you said, we don't want socialized medicine, and at the same time you have a lot of elderly population in this country that
Uh-huh.
they're on a fixed budget, right? And some of these, like you said, if you have some type of rare autoimmune disease or lupus, the medicine is sky high. I mean, pill, it's like $200 a pill. It can get
Yeah.
really outrageous. So what do you think we should do to kind of fix that? And what are you, in favor of?
I think that the FDA clearance process needs to be adjusted, because When you hear that pills cost like pennies to make and then they charge the $200, that's also misleading because, and that's the Democrats' favorite talking point, because what they don't tell you is that it took the company 20 years on average and about $7 billion to research that drug and to get it through the FDA clearance process. And for every one drug that gets approved, 7 fail. So they're going to make up that money by rolling it into the cost of the one that made it. So they're already like tens of billions of dollars into the hole when a drug comes on the market. And the way the FDA processes, it's so costly. And they only have about 7 years left from when the drug gets approval until generic companies are allowed to take it and sell it for pennies. So they have to make that profit up. And now they allow generic companies to get it even sooner if they can say that there's a need. So then it cuts down. So drug companies have about 5 years to make up, say, $20 billion. So of course they're going to charge a fortune for that drug. And then we're paying the price. So I think that if you give these drug companies the option to extend their exclusivity on it, their patent on it before the generic companies can take it, if they agree to charge generic prices, so then they get a longer period to make up their money and we get the savings, we get the lower prices. I think that would be a huge help. I also think that you need to revamp the FDA clearance process itself. And I'm hopeful that what Trump did with getting these coronavirus vaccines and treatments so quickly, what they did on speeding up the FDA process, I hope that it's successful. And then they could use that model for all drugs in the future. Because instead of taking years to go through the process, they streamlined it and they cut out a lot of the bureaucracy. But if it proves that it's still safe, I think that will help lower the costs dramatically.
Right, right.
And what Trump already did, though, I mean, making sure that Americans don't pay a lot more than what the drug companies charge other countries. I mean, that's a huge thing, but he already did that, which is, I think we're going to start seeing the savings, they said, in January. So that is going to make a big difference, I believe.
And let's, like, I know we close to November 3rd, so we have to get to what's really important. Donald Payne Jr. Why is this guy still in office? What has he done?
The only legislation that he got passed is renaming a post office in Jersey City in 8 years. That is the only legislation he got through. And he had a week designated as Periphery Artery Disease Week, which is good, bringing awareness to it, but that's not what we sent him to Congress to do. He ignores education. He's from Newark, and he ignores the education, but he sends his kids to private school because the schools aren't good enough for his kids, but he's against school choice. He's the head of the Committee on Emergency Preparedness and Response, but he was absent during the greatest emergency in our lifetimes with the coronavirus. He did nothing on that. He actually gave our vote by proxy to Debbie Wasserman Schultz and stayed home. Of all people, right? Debbie, yeah. She was fired by the DNC for lying, and he trusted her with our district's vote. It's outrageous. But he's there because his father was there for 23 years before him. And when his father passed, he basically inherited the seat, and he doesn't even bother to campaign. He ignored my request for a debate because he knows that the Democrat machine in the area is so powerful that he doesn't have to campaign. He'll just constantly be getting reelected without any effort whatsoever. And he's gotten primary challengers too. He had 2 this time. And it doesn't make a dent because he's from a powerful political family. He's right. One of the elites, and he hides behind that.
Right.
And he just ignores us.
And you know what's sad about it is that as people, all the people that's watching this, you have to get out of sometimes voting for what you know, right? Mm-hmm. We live in an age now where people are upset. They're saying, hey, what have you done and what are you doing, right? So you have to, okay, if this guy is running, you may say, yeah, I want to vote for him. I know his father. Okay, you know this, you know that. What has he done? Can you point to a bill? Can you even point to a community event where he actually helped somebody, where somebody could point to him and say, hey, he saved my family. He did this. He did that. I mean, name recognition cannot be, you know what I'm saying? Name recognition cannot be anything. You have to point to something that says he is really trying to better our community, or he's trying to bridge the gap between public and private organizations to bring services to people to improve their daily lives. It's just you get nothing. You get nothing.
I know. It's awful. There has been, and I know that the coronavirus screwed everything up in the economy, but before that, Trump brought manufacturing back to so many different areas in this country, but not here. Why not here? Because our leaders aren't fighting for it. They should be fighting to bring these manufacturing plants back. New Jersey used to be the world leader in pharmaceutical manufacturing, world's leader, and we have none now. Why? Bring it back. We need people to start fighting because those are jobs that people can use, really good jobs. And they're just not doing it. We need to expand the opportunity zones here instead of giving them to the politicians' friends and families. They should be going to the local community members who want to start businesses in their community, who know what their community wants and needs instead of these outside developers. We need to start focusing more on our communities and letting them have a role in deciding what happens to them.
Right, right, correct. I mean, I think that we have to bring awareness to how people vote. You look at 2020, there's been a big push for get out and vote, get out and vote. Get out and vote is good, but we need to return to good old fashioned retail politics. Is this person willing to get out there and do the dirty work? Are they willing to hit the streets? Are they willing to talk to these organizations? Are they willing to talk to the people? Put programs together, help kids. We need a politician that wants to do the dirty work. No more elitism. I mean, people are just voting for people because, oh, I've seen him on TV 8 times and I've seen him for years, and it's like I'm gonna vote for him. That's not a good standard of voting. You have people not only Donald Payne Jr., you have Maxine Waters, people that have been around for 60 years, and you can't name one thing that they've actually done. Just the fact that maybe the person feels like they've been around for so long so I can trust them, but that's not a good parameter at all.
No. And that's not the way our government was supposed to run. We weren't supposed to have lifelong politicians. We were supposed to have citizen statesmen, people that are involved in their community, who know the needs of the community and have ideas on how to help them. And then they go into office and they do what they went there to do, and then they come home and go back into their community. It wasn't meant to have politicians that are in for 40 and 50 years. They are so disconnected now from the areas that they represent that they can't possibly represent their best interests. I mean, there's no way that they could know what's needed in their community.
Yeah, I mean, what's even worse than that is like, I mean, it's really bad. What's even worse than that, nowadays, we live in a time where politicians get elected literally with lint in their pocket, and they come out of politics rich. I mean, they go into politics with no money. These are people that ride their bike to work, and then they come out with multi-million-dollar deals. And then people suffer. People suffer. You seen what happened in New York with Amazon, where they wanted to bring Amazon, and AOC jumped on and say, oh, when you going to put the union on? And because they didn't want to do that, because when the union gets involved, they're going to want each worker to get $50 an hour, something beyond what the budget can handle. And they said at this point it's not worth it. And people were upset. I mean, thousands of jobs just gone. And the thing is that we have to teach people that we live in a market where you get paid based on your value or the skilled knowledge you bring to the table. There are skilled jobs like nursing, welding. Now you have green energy where you can service the wind turn. It's so many fields that you can get skilled labor. So
Yes.
our energy should go into bringing people up from non-skilled to semi-skilled to skilled labor. So like you said, they can make a decent livable wage.
Yes. Exactly. I agree with that 100%. We should teach that in schools. We
Right.
should teach kids that, give them the option, or have trade schools. And see, I love some of the policies that Donald Trump has already put into place, but I think they need to be expanded upon, like these apprenticeship programs.
Right.
I think an apprenticeship is a fantastic way for somebody to learn a new skill while earning money, you know? So it's not either or. You're learning it while you're earning. And I think those are fantastic avenues to take. We need to start investing in those.
Right.
Definitely.
Right. So as far as the community and what you stand for, what other policy or platform do you stand on? We know education, economy. What else do you stand on?
I am I am very big on government accountability again with spending. I researched these wasteful spending things that our government does because there's no accountability. There's so many levels of bureaucracy from when a budget gets passed in Congress to when that money's actually spent that nobody is accountable for where it's going. And they don't even think of it as hardworking people's money that they earned, but it is. And they keep raising taxes and then spending our money on such insane things. There is We spend $12 billion a year maintaining empty, abandoned government buildings because there's too much red tape for them to sell the buildings. So every year we spend $12 billion on these empty buildings. I mean, that's ridiculous. Either sell them, make the money, or, repurpose them. Give them to these communities to turn into community centers. Take that $12 billion a year and put that towards programs for these communities. I mean, we have to get really stringent with how we're spending our money and really aware of the fact that it's coming from people. And I know that we've had to do these coronavirus packages. They were important. People needed them. But after we get through this, it's going to be even more critical to curtail our government spending because we need to find a way to pay for it now.
Right.
And they have to make cuts. They have to. But it's not, when Democrats hear you say that you want to make cuts, they say, oh my God, they're going to cut Medicare and they're going to, cut your health care and cut this. And that's not true. But I do think that we need to cut programs like that government building. And I don't think we should be spending tens of $1,000s to an art center in New Hampshire so they could dress up dogs in costumes, let them run around a field and call it Doggy Hamlet. I don't think we need to be spending
Right.
your taxes on that.
Right.
So
I I do believe that there's billions of dollars in wasteful spending. There's, if you add it up, there's got to be at least $20 billion, maybe even more. My figure is probably off. It's probably more than $20 billion in wasteful spending that can, like you said, that can go to much needed services. You know, I hope everybody, watches this video. I hope everybody can see how genuine and sincere you are, because I always felt like you want leaders that's authentic, from the community, and genuinely care because they're going through the same problems. A lot of times with voting, there's a lot of hoopla and propaganda, and people get a tendency to get caught up on the flashy aspect and not focus on the homegrown politicians such as yourself that says, hey, listen, I've lived here. My family legacy is rooted in this community. I mean, that's really big. I want everybody to know that when I start sharing it in different groups and 1,000, 2,000 people see this video, I want them to know that your whole family line and legacy is rooted in Bayonne. I mean, you could point back probably to early 1900s and somebody from your family was there. That
1800s.
So what that means is that there's a spiritual connection between you and this community. It's not just I live here because I pay rent and stuff like that. There is a legacy and a spiritual legacy that connects you to this community and connects you to the people of this community. And yeah, when people see that, people need to see and say, you know what? That's the person who I'm voting for. Not the person that tells me I could do this, that, and the third, but they're telling you that from an office and an infomercial, and you've never seen them in your life. There's people that have never seen Donald Payne Jr., and he's been in office for years. They've never shook the man, they never even looked him in the eye.
I never did.
Yeah, but that's a problem. If you're a servant of the people, how is it that nobody's ever seen you?
I agree. I agree 100% with you. We have to start getting back to that on all levels. We do. Even
Yeah.
even on, I think that we need to start making people aware that they need to get involved, because I was guilty of this too a few years ago. I wasn't as aware of what our politicians were doing. I kind of just trusted them that they were doing the best interests of the community, and I kind of went about my day. But we really need to start holding them more accountable. We have to pay more attention to all levels of government, not just Congress and Senate and president, but pay attention to who's on your school boards, because they're the ones that are deciding the curriculum that your children are learning. And our state school board passed a sex education
Yeah.
requirement,
Yeah.
which parents are outraged about here, and they're not being given the option to opt out. And so you need to be aware of all of these levels, because school board isn't even a paid position on the local level, but they still determine the curriculum that your children, it's still important to know who is on the school board, or who is on your city council, or who you're voting for freeholder. And every level, we really need to start paying attention to who we vote for these positions, because they matter. They all matter.
Right. Yeah, they definitely do. Local politics, or what they call a down ballot,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
are just as, or sometimes even more important than who's on a national level, right? Because
Yeah.
that's who you have to dialogue with, and that's who you have to see. And
Exactly.
everybody watching this video, I want you to, if you don't know her, if you don't know her policies, you can log on to your webpage, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Jennifer Saccone. You go.
Jen Zeno, the
Okay.
webpage. Sorry.
Okay, Jen Zanone. You log onto her page, check out her policies, watch her videos, see what she's about, do some research, do your due diligence, and on November 3rd, vote based on your research and based on what your good gut is telling you. That's how I've always done it. And I definitely thank you for coming on. And
Thank you.
November 3rd, I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. And I'm really glad that you're doing all of this. It makes a big difference. So thank you.
I tried. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Have a great night.